Greetings, people of the internet. I'm Scott with Serkworks Art Labs. Welcome once again to the underground laboratory where we create what? Robots, aliens, zombies, and other imminent threats to humanity. Speaking of other imminent threats to humanity, this is what we're working on today. We're working on this space gremlin guy. We are going to ink him, but there's a topic I want to talk about, something that's sort of near and dear to my heart. And now, I've been an artist as long as I can remember, ever since I could pick up a pencil, and I was lucky enough to have supportive parents that recognize whatever it is, talent or skill or whatever, and encourage that. Not everyone has that, but even with that positive support system, the outside world was very difficult because there's a lot of people that are, you know, when you're an artist, there's a lot of naysayers out there. People that are going to tell you can't make a living as an artist, or you're wasting your time, or whatever, or you should become an accountant or some other boring job like that. And no offense to accountants, but you know, I'm into following my dreams, and if that is your dream to become an accountant, then go for it, more power to you. But I've always wanted to be an artist, so sometimes you have to switch your way of thinking, because when people constantly tell you, oh, there's no value to this, this is just pipe dreams, or your daydream, or this is not worth anything, doing an artwork, get a real job, whatever it is, I want to change your mindset on that. So we're going to talk about some ways where, just to show you that art has value and that people might not think about it. So when people do come at you with these, you know, sort of negative connotations and kind of try to tear you down, you can come back at them and say, no, that's not true. You don't know what you're talking about. This is the deal. Look at this. Look at all around you. Everywhere you see is art. So we're going to talk about that. First, we're going to get to inking this guy, but we're going to go to the paralleloscope where this illustration is already in progress. And let's see. Let's go. Okay, we're going to get a little new agey right here for a minute. So bear with me. What I want you to do is I want you to close your eyes for a second, and I want you to repeat to yourself, my work, my artwork has value. And really think about that, because it's important, because as artists, so many people are trying to tell us that it doesn't have value, and they don't come out right out and say that it doesn't, or all the time. Some people might, but it's just, and it may not be meant to hurt you when people say negative things like, you know, you can't make a living as an artist, or you're going to be a starving artist, or this or that, or anything like that. Sometimes they're looking out for your best interest, but it really does hurt, and it's something we've got to get over. So by saying this, I mean, put it this way: if you don't believe enough in your own ideas to pursue it and to invest in it, not too many other people will. So we've got to keep that in mind, because just society in general, they don't place as much of a value on artists say they would like sports. I mean, I've got friends who are huge into sports. I'm not a big sports fan, but you know, every single weekend, every single day, that's what they do. They sit and they watch sports, and they can tell you all these different stats and things like that. And no one really bats an eye when people talk about sports or something like that. And I don't want this to be like a sports bashing thing or whatever, but it seems like more acceptable. I mean, you know, people will just come up to you, you know, up to me as a guy, and start asking me about the game or whatever, and I'm like, yeah, I don't really have time to put that much time into watching TV and all this kind of stuff. But they just assume, but not too many come up to you and like talk about things like art or whatever. And it's like, it's weird, because like in school you've got kind of your extracurricular activities or your electives or whatever. You've got art and you've got music, which sort of falls into that, and then you've got, you know, your PE and things like that. And I don't know, I just, as far as like funding and stuff goes, it seems like no one's going to cut any funding on PE, but like art and music, they're always going to get cut first. So people just don't seem to value artwork, but they should, because it is very important, and it's everywhere you look is artwork, and somebody needs to create that artwork, and that somebody is us as artists. And a lot of times people think that it's difficult to make a living, and sometimes it can be as an artist, but because I think what it boils down to is people just don't think there's opportunities out there, and there are. And I think a lot of people, they look they're looking at, it's people's dreams, like, oh, I want to work for Disney, or I want to work for Wizards of the Coast, or Blizzard Games, or Marvel, or DC. And I mean, those are cool goals and everything, and it's not like it's unattainable, but it's in some ways it's limiting, because there's so many other places out there you can sell your artwork that people just don't look at. Like my day job, I design like rubber stamps for like crafting companies and all, and that's something I really never even considered, but it's a cool job because I get to draw all these different things. It's an illustration job, and there's not too many illustration jobs. And I've worked in games where I've worked for game companies and I've done designs for that, but there's not a lot of in-house illustration jobs other than, there's animation and stuff like that. But this is an area I never even considered, and I'm working in it. I'm creating some cool stuff, and I'm creating different things all the time, and so it's kind of cool. And that's one of those areas I didn't even consider, but it's really cool. So there's a lot of those things out there. I mean, any store you go into, store, I mean, I'm limiting myself by saying that. Anywhere you go out in the world, there is artwork. Whether it's the, box of, macaroni and cheese that you pick up, or, cereal, or whatever, everything has artwork. Somebody has to design that artwork. And a lot of that artwork, whether you're a graphic designer or illustrator or whatever, or, buildings, I mean, architecture, that's sort of a different thing, but a lot of buildings have sculptures and things like that. Anywhere you go in life, there's art, and people are creating that artwork. And if you look hard enough, and if you know kind of what to do, there's more than enough to go around. Now, granted, there are a lot of artists out there, a lot of people that want to become professional artists, and unfortunately, a lot of those people aren't going to be able to achieve that. But I don't know if it's so much because there's so many people out there that, whether they say it or not, or whether they admit it or not, they love art. Now, there's art collectors and things, and they love art, and they'll go out and say it, and they'll, that's awesome, and I love that. But even the average person who may not think that they love art, may not understand the value that art has. Let me kind of put this in perspective here. If you've ever seen a city that's been sort of gentrified, so you've got a city or a town or whatever, it's kind of run down, and everyone's kind of moved away, and it's like a ghost town. There's nobody there interested. What happens is artists will go in there, and they've kind of got this bohemian lifestyle, and they'll kind of do their own thing. They'll paint murals, or they'll do their own crafty, artsy things, and then people start to take notice. And because it has value, because people are like, oh, this is cool. Look what these artists are doing. They're creating something out of nothing. They're bringing back this old kind of rundown neighborhood because of art, because of that attitude. And what happens is then this is kind of the sad part, but then the normals start to move in, like, oh, this is cool, I want to be a part of this. Maybe I'm not an artist, but I want to be a part of this. And then before you know it, it's kind of loses that what made it great, what that artistic vibe and everything. And then you've got then everyone moves in, and then unfortunately what happens is the property value goes up, and because as artists a lot of times we don't really get paid as much as our art is worth, so we're kind of forced out. And then what's left? I mean, it's that what made that so great is now gone, and it's like people have spoiled that. But when you think about it, the positive part about it is, the thing you got to remember is that the reason why people wanted to move in, because they wanted to be where their art is, because whether it's just something cool, whether they can put two and two together and figure out why, it's the artists that bring in that. And you're not going to sell products with crappy artwork on it. And this is sort of, I'll get on a little bit of a diatribe about things like, because I want to talk about also people devaluing their artwork and not seeing the value in their artwork. And people who are on like sites like, say, Fiverr and things like that, where they're basically giving away their work, $5 for a design. It's just ridiculous. And I don't want you to concern yourself too much with that, because those people that are doing that kind of work and undercutting them, I mean, it does sort of affect the rest of us artists, but don't concern yourself too much with that, because that stuff is not going anywhere. It's like that stuff on Fiverr in the real world, it's invisible, because people that that only want to spend $5 to brand their company, or I mean, those companies aren't going anywhere. If they're not willing, like I said, if you're not willing to invest in your art, no one else will. Same thing with these companies. If they don't value their company enough to pay a professional artist a decent wage to get great work, then that company's going anywhere. You're not like going back to that grocery store thing I was talking about. You're not going to go into a grocery store and look at all the products out there. I guarantee you none of that stuff is designed by somebody that found somebody on Fiverr, because that stuff goes nowhere. If you're not willing to I mean, it's about standing out, and to stand out, you got to invest in that company. Investing means money and time, and paying artists what they're worth to do something like that. So I don't really concern myself with all these 99 designs and Fiverr and all that stuff, because that stuff is garbage. Nothing's going to happen with it. And I know there's people out there that think that, well, maybe my work's not up to par yet, or maybe it's not good enough to get sort of those agency jobs and things like that. So I gotta do these Fiverr things. But you don't need to do that. We've talked about this before. Do your own stuff, and your stuff will get better, and people will find you. Because I'd rather work on my own stuff for free than work on somebody else's thing for $5 or whatever. And again, it comes back to valuing yourself and your artwork, and not undercutting yourself. Because you'll say, well, I can't really charge $75 an hour when there's people out there doing it for $5. But let it be known there are companies out there that, agencies, and there's lots of companies out there, trust me, that are willing to pay you for artwork. And I've even been in situations where I thought I was charging quite a bit, and they're like, oh wow, that's like nothing. We usually pay quite a bit more than that. I mean, so it's you'd be surprised. It really is a hard thing, but because we're so used to hearing that all this negative stuff, that we tend to want to undercharge for our work. And if and again, there's people kind of honing their skills, and they're kind of coming up, and maybe their artwork's not quite there, but there's a lot of people out there who do just dynamite work, and they're just not able to make a living. And I don't know, I think you just got to dig deeper and look in some of these areas. And then, once you get a foothold in some of these other areas, then if your dream is Disney, then you can move on from there. But there's so many other, so many other avenues. Why, maybe you're not, animating for Disney or whatever, but if you're just working some other job that you don't really care for, I mean, there's other ways of making art, and it might not be as glamorous. I mean, there's some things that are a lot of like typesetting or layout, or but that stuff can lead to other things, and some of that stuff can pay. You just kind of got to look for it. And like I said, there's stuff out there I didn't even know, and the more you look at it, just again, take a look around, and like look wherever you go, look at something and think to yourself, somebody created that. How did they find that person? Where did that person come from that created that? If it's a product, you look on the back, find out who, do some research. We've got the internet at our fingertips. Find out, is this an agency? Send them some stuff. Postcards are great. Even nowadays with email, I mean, a lot of people kind of take that for granted. There's not a lot of postcards out. If there is a company that you want to work for, that you really want to work for, put together a nice package. If you've got something and it's custom fit to them, and you send them a nice package, and you explain who you are, really love what you're doing, and everything like that, that could raise some eyebrows if it gets to the right person. But that stuff does take time, and I've done that before. There are certain companies, like if you pick like 5 companies you really want to work with, send them stuff and continue to send stuff, and hopefully you can build a rapport. But don't forget these little guys, these little companies. These are great, like stepping stones and things out there. But they're all over the place. Whether wherever you go, department stores, anything out in the world. I mean, even you're walking by like the little newsstand. Somebody's got to design those newspapers. It's not the greatest work, but it is artwork, and it's something. It's something in that art field, and then you can kind of move up from there and everything. And it just pains me to see a lot of people undercutting themselves and not believing in their work, or if their work's not quite at that point yet, believing that they can get to there and that they can make a living eventually. It is possible. I'm living proof, and so hopefully you guys, remember what I said. Art is all around you. Don't devalue your work. Whether people admit it or not, people need art, and it's enough to take a city from nothing, or a town from nothing, to something great. And then we won't talk about where sometimes it goes from then. But art can change lives. Art can change things, and I want you guys to remember that. And that's probably all I have to say. I can keep going on, but sometimes it seems like I'm repeating myself. But the reason for that is because I want to drive that point home, and I want you guys really to take a good look at your work and know that there's people out there that appreciate it, whether they may not realize it or not. So anyway, that's about all I have for right now. All right, so I hope you got something out of that. I hope that encouraged you or changed your mind. If you have questions, comments, leave them in the comment section. I love getting back to you guys. Another thing I wanted to talk about, these sketches that I do on these videos, and I don't mention this often enough, but they are available for purchase if you're interested. This particular one has already been spoken for, so it's not available, but you go back some of the other videos that I've done, a lot of the artwork is still around, kind of gathering dust in my studio. So if you're interested, hit me up like on an email at scott@serkworks.com or in the comment section. Let me know, and we'll see if we can't get some of that artwork out of here. So there's that. The other thing I wanted to mention, once again, 100 Days of Making Comics Round 2 for me will be starting up February 1st. So stay tuned for that. And yeah, I'll see you guys later. That is all. Hey everyone, thanks for joining me here in the Art Lab. There's a lot of other great content on the channel, so click that subscribe button and you won't miss a thing. If you're an aspiring evil genius, visit Serkworks.com for all your mad science supply needs. And if you want to contact me, hit me up in the comments section or follow me on social media. I'm looking forward to it. I'll see you then.